Hey guys, Henning from FlippedNormals here, and in today's video we are going to take a look at some of the most common modeling tools in Maya. This is perfect for Maya beginners or people who just want to have a refresher on the general modeling tools. First off, we're going to go through marking menus, and then we're going to go through actually all of the most common used modeling tools on these guys here. So let's get started with the marking menus. Marking menus is a phenomenal system for modeling in Maya, and instead of you having to go through the shelves to create primitives like this and going through the different shelves of finding the modeling tools, you can instead use marking menus. By default, if nothing is selected and you hold down a shift right mouse button, you're gonna get a selection of primitives. So if you want to make a cube, you just hold on shift right mouse button, then you hit cube. If you want to have a sphere instead, make sure everything is deselected. You can also hit the Alt D key, which deselects everything. Then we can hold shift right mouse button and choose a sphere, and now we have a sphere as well. If something is selected, then shift right mouse button is going to give you different modeling tools based on the context. Currently we are in object mode, which means that we're going to get object mode features, which means if we shift right mouse button, we're going to get something like the sculpt tool, target weld, filled holes, more object oriented tools. So for instance, multi-cut. So now we can start to cut away and do these kind of things. If we have an edge selected, it's going to give us edge tools. If we have a vert selected, we are going to have vert tools. If we have a face selected, we're going to have face tools. If you have something selected, then when you hold down Control right mouse button, then you're going to get selection tools, which means, for instance, now we can grow the selection and you can shrink the selection. So this is a very handy way of working. So it means in practice, if you want to model fast, we will cover everything I'm showing you right now in a second, just more in depth. If you want to model fast, you can just hold on shift right mouse button, cube. You don't even have to wait for it to show up. You can just do this. Then we can right mouse button and choose get to this menu, which has the component modes. And then you can just start to model right away. You can start to just extrude stuff out. You can select everything, you can bevel things. Now this is going fast, but that's the exact point of this. It means that we can, with marking menus, model really fast and really efficiently just using simple marking menus without really understanding hotkeys. So in short, marking menus, you will use shift right mouse button as the main tool, as the main hotkey. If nothing is selected, you will get primitives. If something is selected, then you will get the appropriate selection or the appropriate menu based on what's selected. In object mode, you get these tools. Edge mode, you get these tools. Face mode, you get different tools. And vert, you get different tools. So this is how I model. It means you can model really fast, you can create tons of stuff really quickly without anyone really knowing what's going on. And it's just a really effective way of working in Maya. It means you can work in full screen mode. It means you don't have to use any shelves or really customizing hotkeys to a crazy extent. And it means if you're working on different Maya computer or computers with Maya installed, maybe you're working as a student and you're changing computers all the time, or you're working in a studio, this means that you can work really fast without really having to customize Maya. So with that said, let's look into the modeling tools. The first modeling tool we are going to take a look at is going to be the Extrude tool. Extrude simply works based on you have a verts or you have a face selected, and then you will extrude this out. You can do this in two ways. Well, in many ways. We're going to show you two ways now. First one is you have it selected, and now you simply use the move tool and hold down a shift key. And this is going to add an extrusion to this, which makes this really nice and easy. Second way of doing it is if you hold down shift right mouse button and you go down, you go south, here you have extrude. Now these do the same things, but if you see with this menu, now we have more options. So now for instance we can move it around, we just have more options for it like so. We can also change the divisions of these extrusions, and we can change the offset of it. So this is more handy if you need something precise, but if you just need something fast, then just using the move tool and extruding. You can also do the same with the scale tool, and you can do the same with rotation as well. So this is just a really quick way of working. Extrusions is something you're going to be using a lot. Then the next, we have merge verts. Merge verts is based on you have 2 verts selected or more. You can just select them by dragging over like so. Shift right mouse button, merge verts, and then we merge verts to center. And now if you want to redo this, you can hit the G key. G is for repeat last action. So if you do this, if you need to do these kind of things a lot, you can just hit the G key a lot, and this will speed up your work so much. So that's shift right mouse button, merge verts, and merge verts to center. Then we have multi-cut. Multi-cut is one of my favorite modeling tools in Maya, and it feels really modern. What I mean by that is that it has many use cases, and it's something you're going to be using a lot. We access this by being in object mode. Simply nothing selected. If something is selected, hit Alt and D. Now nothing is selected. Click on the object. Now we're in object mode. Then shift right mouse button and multi-cut. The way this works is that you can just simply cut where you want to cut. And then you hit the right mouse button, and this is going to commit the cut. You can also just drag from one side to the other, just through the model like this. So you have a nice clean cut going through it. You can also hold down the control key, and this is going to insert a loop like so. This is how I do use it a lot. I very rarely use the insert edge loop tool. I keep using the multi-cut tool for this. And then if you hold on control and shift right mouse button, you have multiple settings, such as edge flow. What this is going to do, we'll talk a little bit about this later on as well, is that it will now preserve the edge flow. So if you insert something like this, it will preserve the edge flow really nicely. So multi-cut, really handy. This is so useful that when I'm doing professional level modeling, that I'm not just keeping it here. I actually have it set to a hotkey because it just saves me one click. It's just a little bit easier instead of having to go out of edit mode, click here, and then go here, because this is something I use all the time. Then we have average verts. Average verts will soften out what we have. In this case, you can see that we have all the verts like this, and they are crazy messy. So what I want to do, I just want to hold on the control key, control right mouse button, shrink selection, and then shrink selection. And now we only have the internal edges like this. And we want to relax these guys. We want to average them out. So shift right mouse button. You can see it's always shift right mouse button for anything we're doing. If it's vert selected, we do shift right mouse button. If it's polygons, shift right mouse button. It's all the same thing. Then we do average verts. And now you can see that this softens it out like this. And you can also set the iterations here as well. If this is set really low, it's not going to do a whole lot. And the higher they are, the more it's going to be relaxed. You reach a point of diminishing returns here though, like 10 is good. So what you can do instead, you can hit the G key, and that's going to add more average verts nodes to this. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm mentioning nodes, you should watch one of our most recent videos on how Maya is node based, and this is all going to make sense. Then we're going to be showing you target weld. Target weld is fantastic, and it's similar to merge verts, but target weld will allow you to specifically target a single vert and weld it together. So be in object mode for this one. Shift right mouse button, again, same hotkey. Target weld, just go straight north. And now you can see that we can simply drag from one to another, like so. And this is going to weld it. This is crazy useful if you're doing general modeling. It's one of these tools I use all the time, and also one of these tools I have set to a specific hotkey. Like I said before, you don't have to have set custom hotkeys, because marking menus make it really fast and easy. But if you do this all day, every day, it's worth just having a few hotkeys. It just makes your life a little bit easier. So target weld, fantastic. Then we have fill hole. Fill hole is going to do exactly that. If you have a hole in a model like this, it's going to fill it. So in this case, we can select an edge. And we don't have to select all the edges around. You can do the double clicking, but you don't have to. Simply select a single edge, right mouse button, with the edge selected, meaning you're now going to get tools for edges. And then we go down here, we have fill hole. And now this fills the hole. So now you can also use this with multi-cut, and we can just start to cut this in like so. And now you've basically bridged these like so. We can also fill the hole up here as well. Simply select one of the edges in the hole, then shift right mouse button and then fill hole. And now we have filled the hole. And now you can use, for instance, with the scale tool selected, hold down the shift key, and then we can just scale this down by extruding it in. And now you just have some more resolution here. And then you can, for instance, use the multi-cut tool to cut over like so. And now you can start to quad this up if you want to do that. The next up, we have bridge. Bridge is a bit similar to what we just did with fill hole, just that you don't have to cut them. You don't have to like use multi-cut to cut in the segments. So what we can do now is we want to bridge this to this. So what you can do, you simply select this edge, then select this edge. Then we use bridge. And in this case, this works. Sometimes it doesn't work. So what I prefer to do when I'm bridging in Maya, this tool is just a bit wonky sometimes, is that I first select one polygon and I bridge it. In this case, we hit the G key to just repeat the last action, or we can shift right mouse button and then we can do bridge. And then you can select the remaining. So now I just double clicked it, which is a problem because now we need to just select the polygons we want to bridge. So deselect these ones by holding the control and drag over. And then we can do the same thing again, hit the G key, and now it's done. Let me just show you real quick what it might look like. The issue you might have is that it might look something like this, where it's twisted. And easy to rectify, you can simply just change the twist amount to something else. But just be aware that this could be an issue. And just to avoid that, I prefer to bridge one and then go from there. You can also change stuff like the division as well, which is pretty cool. Then we're going to look at Append Polygons. Append Polygons tool is one of these really old school tools. You're going to see this from tutorials around 2001. Select the object in object mode. Again, Alt-D to deselect everything. Click on the object and then shift right mouse button and append to polygons tool. And this allows you to simply bridge individual polygons. So select this polygon and select this polygon and hit enter. Hit the G key to get up the modeling tool again. And then we do the same thing here. Just click on one edge, click on the other edge, and hit enter, and there we go. Now we have appended these up like so. I don't use this a whole lot, but once you do need it, it's a really handy guy. Most often though, I find it to be replaced by the bridge tool or the fill holes tool. Then we have combine. Combine allows us to simply combine these two. If these two are separate objects, but want them to be one object, shift right mouse button with both selected, go down a little bit. You have to be in object mode for this, and then combine. Now you can see these are now one object. And you can also see you get more nodes here as well. You get like 2 transform nodes. This is just so there might be some use cases down the line for you with this, but on all practicality, you should just delete history, shift Alt and D, and now you can see these groups disappear. This is more explained in the nodes video we have, which I just talked about. Then we have separate. Separate is a nice tool. This simply separates out every single model, which is its own model like this. You can see they're not connected anyway, and they will just turn them into individual objects. Select the object, shift right mouse button, and then separate. And there we go. Now these are 2 objects. And you can see here as well, there's a transform node. So select both of them, shift Alt D, or you can go to edit, delete by type and history. Then we have a guy which is similar to separate, but this is based on a polygon level. If you use separate in this, nothing's going to happen because it's all one cohesive polygon or one polygon mesh. But if you want to separate out, for instance, this cap here on the top, we can easily do that as well. So if you want this to be separate into one clean model, you can simply select this piece, shift right mouse button, and extract faces. And there we go. Now these are 2 separate pieces. They're not duplicates of each other, nothing like that. They're just simply 2 separate pieces like so. Then we have smooth. Smooth is not doing exactly what you assume. It doesn't actually smooth the model. It doesn't relax the model. That's a job of the average Verts tool. What smooth is doing is rather subdividing the model. If we shift right mouse button in object mode and click smooth, you can see it now subdivides it. If you hit this one, if you hit G now, you can subdivide it more, or you can simply just drag the slider on the subdivision right here. So really handy if you need to add more resolution to your models. This will add 4 times the resolution. Each subdivision will add 4 times. This used to be one polygon, and now it's 4. Then we have edit edge flow. Edit edge flow is fantastic. You see we have this edge here, and this doesn't really conform to the curvature. This is supposed to be something like out here, but it's not. And if we used edit edge flow on this, it will preserve that curvature. So we can shift right mouse button on it, edit edge flow, and now we can see that this is now great. Another example as well is if we use multicut and we add a loop just to this guy. Let's say it's right there, and we just disable edge flow. So we just add a loop right here, and we just mess it up a little bit. Like we just go in and we just completely like screw this loop up. This is something you're going to see a lot when it comes to just your general modeling. It might not be like a cartoony example like this, but it might be a case which is similar, where you have you just have some resolution, or you just have an edge somewhere which doesn't behave. Everything else around it is nice. This edge is nice, this is nice, but this one here is just misbehaving. So select this guy, select this loop by double clicking on it, shift right mouse button, and then we do edit edge flow. And now you can see as by magic, this now goes back to where it's supposed to be. The thing is, it doesn't know where it was. It doesn't even matter where it was. There is no memory here. But what it's doing is it looks at this edge and looks at this edge, and it puts it right in the middle. So shift right mouse button on this and edit edge flow. This is something I use a lot. You can now just click on this edge, hit the G key, and now you can just start to soften off the entire model. This is something I keep doing when I'm just modeling particular organics, because you want nice evenly spaced models. Then we have the slide edges tool. Slide edges is phenomenal. If you want to slide this, we want to move this from over here to here, but you don't want the shape to change. What you can do is you can select the loop, shift right mouse button, and then we can do slide edge tool. Just hold down the middle mouse button. Remember to read the little text which pops up. And now we can just slide it, and you can see it preserves the shape. This is more prominent if it's a more high-res model. What you can do as well, this is a little bonus tip. If you hold on the shift key now, you can see you can also move this up and down on its normal. So this is kind of like a way I'm often just scaling based on a normal. So if I want to move all of this out like so on a normal, I just use the slide edges tool and just hold down the shift key. And then I'm just scaling it up, and now everything will be scaled up based on its normal. So that's a really nice little tip for you. Just hold down the shift key with the slide edges tool, and it will just scale up and down. Then we'll look at the bevel tool. The bevel tool is something we can use a lot as well. What it's doing in its most simple form is you have one edge selected, shift right mouse button to the right, and now we have a beveled edge. If you click bevel, and what you can do, you can now change the fragment of the fraction here. You can see that by default it's going to go really fast, but what I'm doing is hold down the control key, and now it goes really soft like this. So now you have increments. You can also change the segments, change the depth. So this is a really useful tool. We can also just undo this, and then we can do this on the whole thing as well. Select all the edges, shift right mouse button, bevel edges, and now you can see what it's doing. Now if we just change the fraction of it, now we hold on the control key, now you can see that we can just bevel the entire thing. Here though, we're getting n-gon, so what we can do, we can just change the segments from 1 to 2, and there we go. Change the depth. So the bevel tool is really useful. Then we have circularize components. That's one mouthful for you. So here we have a square shape. We have this guy, and we want this to be round. What we can do is we can select the polygons, and then we can go to shift right mouse button. Again, same menu as before. And then we can go to circularize components. And now you can see that this turns into a circle. We have a lot of options here as well. We're not going to go too deep into these ones, but you have, for instance, twist, which is really useful. And then we have normal offset, which is just going to offset it like this. Radial offset, which is going to offset it like this. But in general, I tend to just use this for the default settings, which is just circularize components. And now you can see if we were to, for instance, now scale this in with the using the extrude tool, hold down the shift key with the scale tool active. Now we can just extrude it down. And then we can hold down the shift key with the move tool, scale it down or move it in, and just move it in. And now you can see if we subdivide this, we have nice, clean a nice clean hole which is circular in our model. This is a crazy useful tool if you are doing hard surface. This kind of stuff is surprisingly tricky to do if you don't have a circularized tool, because now you have to put in an actual cylinder, you have to snap it, or you have to select these guys and you have to kind of scale it based on just eyeballing it. And it kind of works, but it's much better to use a circularized tool. Then we have the connect tool next. Connect tool is great. It allows us to simply connect things up. If you have these two selected and you hit the shift key and you hit shift right mouse button, now we have connect. And now you can see we can keep connecting things up. If we hit the G key now, and we can just keep connecting these things up. Really useful stuff. This is also a tool I tend to keep on a hotkey as well. Another way of using a connect tool is if we select some edges here and we want to have a loop going through this. We can select them like so, just simply by dragging on top of them. Shift right mouse button, and then we can do connect components. Now it's going to be the edge connect. And I can see that it's going to simply just connect it right in the center. Then we have delete edges. This one is a bit obvious, but I just want to make sure you get this one as well. If you want to delete edges, you have to use a specific tool for this. You can either hit Control and backspace on your keyboard. I don't like this because I have to move my left hand. Well, I have to move my right hand so much. I have to move it away from my mouse, which is inconvenient. So what you can do is you can hold down a shift right mouse button, again, same menu, and then you can do delete edge. If you want to delete any more of them, you simply double click it on edge, hit the G key, double click, and hit the delete key. If you want a little bonus tip for this as well, if you select an edge, and then we hold down Control and right mouse button, then you can see we have a lot more settings. So we haven't talked about these before. We have edge ring utilities, which are stuff like edge ring collapse, which can do this. It selects the entire edge ring collapse system. Or on the other side, we have edge loop utilities. And here we have edge loop and delete. So what this does, it selects the whole loop and then it deletes it. So instead of double clicking and deleting like so, we can simply select here, Control right mouse button, edge loop utilities, and edge loop and delete. So this becomes quite quick after a while because, as you can see, it's gesture based. So right now what I'm doing is you don't actually see me selecting the menus. You just have to gesture it. So the gesture is down here and then up. So now you just do this. So it means you can work really fast. Same thing here as well. If you want to edge ring and collapse, do the opposite. You do it this way, and then you do it this way, and then this way. So you can work really fast if you get used to working with marking menus like this. And then we have the last tool, which is Insert Edge Loop tool. Sometimes you just need good old Insert Edge Loop tool. You can access this by clicking Alt-D first to go out of any selection, clicking on the object. So we go into the object mode, shift right mouse button, and here we have the good old trusted Insert Edge Loop tool. The reason I don't use this a whole lot is because we have the multi-cut tool, which has this as well, but this has a few interesting settings. If we double click on the tool, then you can see we have some settings for it. Let's just dock these over like so. And now we can just click it, and then it's going to be allows us to drag out the loop. So what we can do, for instance, now we can do multiple edge loops. And this is where I find this tool to be useful. Sometimes you just have to insert a lot of loops very quickly. And this is where you can go, I want 27 loops. Click it, and there you go. This is actually quite hard to do if you don't have this tool, because otherwise you have to kind of go in and just with multicut, just go in and add them. And that's really painful. So by using the Insert Edge Loop tool, you can very easily do this. So that's it for the modeling tools. We have gone through a whole lot of them right now. And if you ever need to have a refresher on this, make sure to just check out this video again. Again, I highly recommend you use marking menus for everything. Then you don't have to remember all sorts of hotkeys, and you just simply hold down Shift right mouse button, and that's your hotkey for anything. You will start to model a lot faster this way, and if you can't remember exactly where things are, it's fine. You will just get used to the gesture approach as you do it more and more. Also, if you are interested in learning more about Maya, I highly recommend our exclusive Introduction to Maya tutorial as well. We cover what we just covered in this video, and plus way more. It's 73 videos, but over 12 hours of content, where at the end we show you how to make this helmet from scratch, from the modeling to the texturing, all procedural Arnold, to Arnold render settings, to the extra ink room, and just everything you need in order to get started with Maya. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any suggestions for other Maya videos you want to see, any modeling videos, please let us know down in the comments below, and we'll be sure to get back to you on that.